Hey everyone, welcome to Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is going to be protein function, and as we hopefully remember from the previous chapters, protein function is intimately tied to and related to protein structure, and protein structure is then tied to and related to protein sequence or amino acid sequence. So before we get into Chapter 5, I want to show you some resources. These are all listed in my courses in the content section. There's a folder called online resources, I think. All of the things that I'm about to talk to you about now are listed in that document, and they are also super useful for anybody that might be working on their projects. The reason I'm showing them to you now, well, first, like I said, they're useful for your projects, but also there's some interesting stuff in here that's not in the textbook, but may help you clarify and solidify some ideas. So the first thing that I want to talk about real quick is the Protein Data Bank, the PDB. So anybody that determines the structure of a protein or a piece of DNA, they can deposit their structure in this database, and then it's available to the public. So in my previous life, when I was doing structural biology research, this is where I would deposit my structures when I was done with them. There are about 165,000 proteins and pieces of DNA in here. So if you look up at the top, you can see the statistic that tells you how many are in there. These come from universities, they come from companies that are working on drug targets. So anybody that solves the structure of a protein can deposit it to this database for the world to see. So we are going to be dealing exclusively with myoglobin and hemoglobin in this chapter. So let's just have a look and see. Right, so if we search for myoglobin, there are a lot. There are, let's see, 2,600 structures of myoglobin, and you can see that there are a lot from human. There are some from E. coli, some from cows, mice, all kinds of cool stuff. So if you wanted to look at any of these proteins, well, there's almost always a literature citation that goes along with the structure. You can look at the three-dimensional structure and see what it looks like in different orientations. Okay, so this is the PDB, the Protein Data Bank. This is where all the structures go. Now, up at the top, there's a link for Learn, and I particularly like Molecule of the Month. So if you click on Molecule of the Month, you end up at a page that looks like this. This page has been operating for about 20 years, and they have a molecule that they highlight every month. So you can, again, search for myoglobin, and there are 9 articles about myoglobin, or about myoglobin relatives. So you can click into these, and the really nice thing in here is that they're pretty generic and quick reading science articles. There's not a lot of difficult language to understand. They tell you about the structure, and they tell you about what you're looking at. They also give you a bunch of references if there's something else that you're interested in. So the PDB and the Molecule of the Month website, I think, are super helpful and super interesting. Now, going on to other resources, right, there's Proteopedia. This is a really cool site because it's similar to Wikipedia. Users can create new articles. But the nice thing here is that Proteopedia is specifically for let's say, a very unique type of presentation about proteins. So I went to the hemoglobin search term. I found this article on hemoglobin, and as you start reading through it, right, the first stuff is obvious. Hemoglobin is an oxygen transport protein. Great. Allosteric protein, and it's a tetramer. And for some reason, tetramer is in green, and it's a clickable link. So let's see what happens when I click on it. So after a couple seconds, the page will refresh, and you'll be able to see now that hemoglobin, so the view that you're looking at has changed. Hemoglobin has these 4 unique strands. Sorry, they're not unique. There are 2 alpha subunits and 2 beta subunits. So if we keep reading, yep, alpha 2, beta 2. So if we click on this, now we get, there it is. So now we get the hemoglobin molecule, and this is a space filling or CPK or sphere. So all atoms are represented as spheres in this case. And it looks like the beta monomers are yellow, the alpha monomers are blue, and then the heme groups are in red. And you can spin this around, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff. You can zoom in or zoom out. And as you keep reading, right, you keep clicking on the links, and it will basically walk you through what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So here we see each of the monomer units in different colors. If we go to the next link, it says that there's a cavity at the center. And right there we can see that cavity with that hole in the middle contains a heme prosthetic group. Yep, so now the surface of the molecule has disappeared, and what we're looking at is the ribbon drawing or the cartoon diagram. And the heme groups, there are 4 of them, are shown in the atom representations. Okay, so the last 2 resources are, I would say, more research related, but still very cool. So I want to highlight those real quick as well. So the first one is Uniprot. So it's uniprot.org. You come in here, and I typed in hemoglobin. I got a bunch of hits. I can look at horses or mice or rats or pretty much any other species that we know the sequence of hemoglobin for. But I get all kinds of information here. So as I scroll down through, right, here are some pathology and disease type descriptions along with references that go with them. And if I keep scrolling, I can get a list of which amino acids are modified and how they're modified in the mature form of hemoglobin. I can also look at the structure. Right? So there are a bunch of structures, and I can look at them, and here is my structure of hemoglobin with the heme groups in there. I can look down here for a real quick summary of where the secondary structure elements are located. And then if I keep going, there's one link that I'm really interested in, and it's called PFAM. So PFAM stands for protein family. And PFAM is another database that summarizes all of the known structures and sequences for a given protein family. So I'm looking at the globin family right now. And cool things for me, if I'm interested in doing research on the globin family, there are 2,700 protein structures that are known. There are 32 or 3,300 species where globin structures are found. And if I click on that, I get this kind of cool representation. So in this circle here, right, we start at the very base level, and then extend out into genus and species. So if we're looking at this sunburst, at the most basic kingdom, super kingdom level, we can see that we have eukaryotes and bacteria. So the eukaryote section is not that surprising because, well, so here we have mammals, and we know and expect globins to exist in mammals. So there's camels and elephants and horses, all kinds of cool stuff. And we can even, yep, they're cows. Now, something that may be not so trivial or maybe interesting or a little weird is that bacteria also have globin structures in them as well. So I'll leave that up to the interested reader to figure out why bacteria have their own globin structures.